It is finally here! I definitely had other plans for today, and I'm even working on other videos. I'm actually going to talk about some recent animated shorts that came out, and that's what I was doing. But today, we are finally getting the newest episode of Helluva Boss Season 2, Episode 8, The Full Moon. I'm going to talk about some of the things that may have been overshadowed by the big drop that happened at the end, as well as some of the technical and story elements that I think were particularly incredible in this episode. If you've been following this channel, you might be wondering why this is not a reaction video. If you're figuring out that it's not a reaction video, because it's not a reaction video, we're not doing those anymore. I know change is hard, but not as hard as Blitz was leading up to the end of this episode. Transitions. And let's get into that part. Spoilers from this point on. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's good. So I'm going to be going backwards with this a little bit. I'm starting with the ending because the ending is probably what most of us have been thinking about since watching it. And for those who were looking for my reaction, I pretty much felt how most everyone I imagine did. Oh my god, I'm so sad that Blitz and Stolas are not going to end up in a sort of happily ever after scenario. It broke my heart, this like slight miscommunication that led to that ending where Stolas is pretty much just getting him out of his tower. But I think that it was actually really brilliant that it was done this way. This is one of the reasons why I'm excited not to do the reactions anymore, because I feel like you're just going to have the emotional response of, oh no, I'm sad for these characters. But I actually want to talk about why this was such a good choice in terms of relationship writing and developing a story of that nature. So I've talked about this before on the channel. I really dislike the relationship trope in a lot of romantic comedies and even some non-romantic comedies where one character will kind of mishear what another character says and they end up in this temporary third act disagreement where one person says, I heard what you said, you don't really love me, and then they like break up, but everybody knows where it's going from then on. It's just an annoying misdirection, and you know they're gonna make up at the end, and it's pointless. It's just filler for time, and usually it's something stupid that if they just talked it through, they'd figure it out, right? This isn't doing that. When Stolas and Blitz miscommunicate a little bit at the end of this, Stolas gives Blitz this Asmodean crystal so that he doesn't have to use Stolas's grimoire to access the human realm anymore. In doing this act, Blitz essentially is no longer bound to have this sort of transactional relationship with Stolas, and it does what Stolas says in the opening song number, which I'll get to later. It frees them to make the choice to do what they want to do.
You don't have to stay here with me, but I want you to.
But Blitz doesn't take it this way, and the thing is, if we didn't know who Blitz was, it'd be really easy to be like, oh my god, Blitz, you're such an idiot. In fact, I still feel that way a little bit, like, dude, you are dropping the ball on this so hard. Stolas just gave you the happily ever after scenario. He teed you up to just say how you feel, and you can be together, and it can be fucking perfect. But Blitz has a lot of insecurity, and he's so not sure if someone can really love him that way that it's hard for him to accept that this is actually what's going on. He didn't even believe it at first. He straight up thought he was joking and that they were trying to do some, like,
this is an interesting role play. Never done this one, but I can get into it. All right, how's this? Oh, Stolas, I'll stay with you. I love you so much.
Hot, kinky role play, which, like, sure, it would have been I get that. Like, I get that part, but it's a miscommunication because Blitz's expectations are so not based there, and he's not really used to communicating his feelings. He's not really in touch with his emotions very much, whereas Stolas is very in touch with his emotions and is acting very emotionally. And there's sort of like a conflict of these opposing perspectives on the relationship and these opposing emotional relationships just within themselves. And Stolas reads Blitz not understanding that as Blitz not actually caring, and then Blitz gets mad and straight up yells at Stolas, saying that you've been playing with me and playing with my emotions. And when he gives that line,
we can just play with our feelings because we're smaller and not as important.
All of us want to hear that and think Stolas, like, he just said mess with my emotions. Like, that's kind of him really subtly saying that he did care and he has been caring and he's trying to care. In this tense moment when Stolas is trying to give a very clear motivation for Blitz to choose to be with him, it makes sense that he wouldn't see that, and instead he just throws him out in a dramatic sense with his cool cloak magic powers. And then we are left with no falling action. That is just the peak of the episode happens and it is over. And I think that is super, super well done. Emotionally, yes, it's terrible. It's heart-wrenching for us, right? But the thing that it does so well is the falling action is now. It is our reflection. We have until whenever the next episode comes out to wonder, are they actually going to be able to patch things up? Is this a wound? Is this a miscommunication that's actually going to get healed? And that is what makes it not the stupid trope. The miscommunication makes sense for their character dynamic, right? Throughout the entire series, they've had struggles communicating. Stolas has had struggles admitting what he wants to do. Blitz has really been struggling even admitting it to himself. So this miscommunication actually makes sense for their character. It's not just some stupid,
I heard you saying to some third-party source of information that you didn't love me.
And it also doesn't make us feel like this is just a runaround to an obvious happily ever after story. I don't know what you think, let me know in the comments, but I'm not so sure that this is going to be a happily ever after story. This very well could be a tragedy instead. I want it to be a happily ever after story. I really want it to be a happily ever after story. But when they're doing musical numbers that are playing with our expectations of what a theater Disney style song would be,
When I see him, I'm gonna do that thing he likes.
I will change
No need to change things. I'll just bring the rope and spike.
it makes me very concerned that that's not the reality we're getting with, and it's going to be a harsh lesson of this is why we should learn to be in touch with our emotions and communicate with the people that we love. And that is what a good relationship plotline should do. If we already know what's going to happen at the end, there's no tension, there's no sense of investment in this relationship and these characters, because we already know their character. We already know they're going to patch things up, and it's just a matter of time biding before it ends up happening. With this, we need to see every single next minute of how they're going to develop this because we don't know what's going to happen. These are two characters that have a lot of emotional flaws, and they need to work to get better at those things so that they can be more communicative and loving, or whatever ends up happening. Or they need to totally fall back on bad habits or have some other misfortune happen that teaches the audience that this is what can happen. There's kind of the two moral endings that it looks like we're being teed up with a plotline like this. And this is a perfect tightrope that's being walked with this relationship story. And I feel like it's really difficult for relationship stories to walk this fine line. So though this is a very heart-wrenching, like sad ending, I really love it. It's actually one of my favorite endings that we've gotten from any episode so far. And actually, as a whole, I think this is one of the best episodes we've ever had. And you might think that's actually a weird choice because it's not like we got all these incredible song numbers or that many intense plot-moving moments outside of the relationship. But I actually beg to differ on that. First of all, we do get the great song number that opens the episode, which tees up perfectly what the relationship conflict is going to be. We're getting the juxtaposition of Blitz trying to kink shit up, and Stolas really trying to dive into his emotions and talk his way through returning the book and freeing them to be able to love each other without any, like, confinement involved, no transactions involved. The song is funny, but it's actually just a really good song.
But when I see him, will it be tender or be tough? Will it please him, or will I just be
I did a song ranking in one of my previous videos of all of the Helluva Boss songs, and I would probably say this one ends up in A tier for me. Before I get on to the next part that makes me think this is a really great overall episode, the one criticism that I actually have about how the relationship dynamic was done in this episode was Luna makes the point to say that Stolas is getting bored of him, and that's why they haven't seen each other.
Oh shit, he's getting bored of you.
And I don't think that that was necessary. I think that it would have been a stronger choice for Blitz to have somehow come to this realization on his own, and his own insecurity of feeling like he's not doing enough being the thing that actually wells up in him and makes him go to the sex store and, you know, want to, like, kink stuff up because that's his only way of figuring out how to make himself more interesting to somebody. Luna just kind of plops this idea in his head and that, like, Stolas is falling out of love with him. It just feels a little bit ingenuine and like almost out of left field considering how much of this stuff has been building up over a long period of time. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it serves the goal. It is a little bit of a nitpick, but I just feel like in terms of Blitz's character, it might have hit just slightly harder. if he had been having this insecurity welling up in himself and he'd been avoiding it and trying to cover it up, and it wasn't spurred on by someone else's comment or anything like that. But anyway, the whole Blitz and Stolas relationship has kind of overshadowed what I think some of the other really great things about this episode were. We got the C.H.E.R.U.B members again, who were cast out from heaven in a previous episode as a result of their dealings with the IMP people that we've come to know and love. And we also see that they end up rolling with the secret agent characters. And this dynamic is so good. The fact that these characters are meeting and joining together makes a lot of sense. And we're actually seeing a ramping up of that part of the story as well. The secret agents have proven that these creatures exist, and they are actually scaling up military efforts to try to stop. And knowing everything else we know about like Has-Been Hotel and their whole war and everything going on, it's really hilarious to see how much is going into like the war effort of them just trying to kill these 4 demons from hell. I love seeing these members. I really like that one of the members of, I'm just gonna call them the C.H.E.R.U.B members. I like seeing that one of them is really actually questioning if this is a good idea, and it seems like one of them's a little bit more moral than the others. But it actually is reflecting Has-Been Hotel really well. If you've been watching Has-Been Hotel and not just Helluva Boss, you know that the way that heaven and hell is actually organized is not really very cut and dry, and the moral compass that everyone acts on is not necessarily a valid or accurate or good representation of what good actually is, and if that's even something that you can quantify. And the whole interaction with the C.H.E.R.U.B and secret agents kind of doing somewhat nefarious things to take out our protagonists. It's playing with those themes a lot, and it's actually paralleling what's going on in the Has-Been Hotel story, and I think that's really cool. It makes the audience feel like we're getting rewarded for having been a part of both parts of the story. And that's what good universe building does. It makes us, you know, look back at the Marvel end credit scene that we stayed to the end for and be like, I see what's going on here. I watched all that, so I'm in the know. They're not doing it in an annoying way like Marvel does now.
It varies from moment to moment.
And I also want to say how much I love these secret agent characters. They are so funny and over the top, and like the voice acting I think is very hysterical for them. The fact that they're trying to be like American heroes and just like killed a bunch of babies.
Those goddamn American heroes.
I don't know, in my opinion, that seemed like a very American thing to do. So I thought that was very funny. And then the third note that I think a lot of people might not have seen is the fact that Moxie, Millie, and Luna were actually following Stolas to make sure that he wasn't screwing up, to be fair, but that they ended up saving him and defending against the angels. That was a really good touch because it's giving the audience a feeling of these characters really do care about each other, and they actually are a super tight-knit group. Even though Blitz is out here experiencing this like really tragic event, he's got his team behind him, and that is going to make waves and be very important in the oncoming story. We're not getting that organization like falling apart amidst everything, because that would be too much pain for me personally. A note on how this secret agent and C.H.E.R.U.B thing kind of ended though is they win, right? The Helluva Boss, our people beat the C.H.E.R.U.Bs. The thing that I didn't get is that Luna threw them back through the portal that was open, and I don't really understand that. When I was watching it, the one reaction that maybe not everybody had when I was watching it, what? Why would you do that? Keep them with you. I mean, maybe not take them prisoner, but don't throw them back through the portal. They're gonna be able to regroup and send more people after you. You don't want that. That's not a good scene. We saw what happens in Has-Been Hotel when that happens, and that's scary. It's funny, now that we've had Heaven is trying to get into hell and do that whole war thing, and now we're seeing that now humanity is too. That's just so clever. It's so funny. It's making the story feel huge. Not so huge that we can't keep track of it, like Marvel. But, you know, full. It feels like there's a lot going on and a lot to be excited about. I don't think I have any other notes. I guess the smallest nitpick is I thought that the background of the sex shop was a little cluttered and I would have liked to see more detail. I know that sounds ridiculous, and I'm sure that part of that is by design because even like the and stuff they have to blur out because YouTube policy, I guess. Maybe I'll even have to censor that I said that. Haha. I get that you can't just have like a super graphic like sex stuff everywhere. But I mean, they have shots of it still, so I don't know. Maybe just a small nitpick. Also, for some reason, the spider character that was the sex shop owner, it didn't do anything for me. Smallest nitpick. But you know what? I wanted to analyze everything that I thought about the show, so I'm saying it just in case. Oh, the one thing that I forgot to say, it also brought back Blitz's relationship with Fizz, because Fizz let him borrow some of the sex stuff that they make, him and Ozzy. And that also tied that part of the plot together because they're like cool now, and it's really cool to see them be cool. Like, that's fun to see that they're friends again. It's cool to see Fizz try to help Blizz, like, rizz up Stolas and, you know, prepare him for sexy times. I love to see that dynamic. It just makes the story feel whole.
That's what she said.
And there's a lot that we have to be excited about. I also did watch the Helluva Boss short that came out somewhat recently, and I am going to be talking about that in a future video as well. So make sure you're liked, and I always say make sure you're liked and subscribed. Make sure you're subscribed so you see the video. Actually liking will make it more likely to show up in your algorithm if you're not subscribed, but like the video anyway for me. And on that note, let me know what you did think in the comments of this episode. What were your favorite parts about it? Obviously, we are heartbroken for Stolas and Blitz. Let me know where you think that storyline is going. I think that's just one of the interesting parts of this story. This gave me a lot. This is actually one of my favorite episodes of the whole series so far. That's another thing I'm interested in what you have to say. Where do you rank this in terms of how good it is in the overall landscape of the show? I thought this was a fantastic way to bring us back from a long break, because Has-Been Hotels took the limelight for a really long time, and I felt like this gave me all of the characters and all of the plot lines that I was interested in. Also, if you're interested, we've got a podcast going on where we're talking about if you'd want to live in different cartoon worlds. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss those. And that's all the plugs I have, except for the ones I'm going to get at that store from today's episode, am I right? See you next time. That's how we're ending the video today.
Okay, grow up, Monks. That's what adults do. We're horny.